In the grim darkness of a medieval French night, a group of furious drapers, fueled by free wine and the fiery spirit of rebellion, stormed the city hall of Rouen, their shouts of "Harrow" echoing through the narrow, cobblestone streets. This was not just a random act of drunken violence. It was the beginning of a massive uprising that would soon spread like wildfire across France, challenging the very foundations of the kingdom. The year was 1382, and the Duc d'Anjou, a man driven by an insatiable hunger for wealth and power, had pushed the people of France to the brink. The Duc d'Anjou, whose full name was Louis I of Anjou, was a man with grand ambitions. He had his eyes set on inheriting the kingdom of Naples, a prize that would have made him one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. However, his dreams were shattered when Queen Joanna of Naples was overthrown by a rival. Desperate to finance his military campaign to reclaim Naples, Anjou turned to the people of France, imposing a new and unbearable tax on wine, salt, and other goods. This decision was made in secret, and the tax collectors were chosen behind closed doors in the Châtelet, the imposing medieval fortress in Paris. The court, fearing a popular backlash, remained outside the city walls at Vincennes, a royal castle on the eastern outskirts of Paris. As news of the new tax spread, the people of France, already burdened by years of heavy taxation and economic hardship, erupted in fury. Riots broke out in cities across the country, including Lyon, Amiens, Reims, Orléans, and Rouen. In Paris, the capital of the kingdom, the anger was palpable. Jean de Maers, a respected advocate who had served under several kings, tried in vain to convince Anjou to rescind the tax. His pleas fell on deaf ears. Shopkeepers locked their doors, refusing to let tax collectors in, and citizens armed themselves, ready to defend their rights. In Rouen, the capital of Normandy, the situation was particularly volatile. The wine merchants, who stood to lose the most from the new tax, incited the lower classes, distributing free wine and rallying the crowd with inflammatory speeches. On a cold February night, a group of about 200 drapers, fueled by their own anger and the wine they had been given, stormed the city hall. They rang the tocsin, a loud bell that signaled emergency, and the city erupted into chaos. The drapers, joined by countless others, looted the homes of the wealthy, broke into coffers, and destroyed records. They attacked priests, pawnbrokers, and Jews, and forced the Abbé of St. Ouen to sign away the town's dues. The leader of the drapers, Jean Legras, a large and simple-minded man, was dragged to a makeshift throne and paraded through the streets, much to the chagrin of the upper bourgeois who had hoped to remain behind the scenes. The riot in Rouen was a powerful example of the simmering discontent that had been building for years. The ruling class, fearing a widespread rebellion, sent delegates to Vincennes to plead for mercy. The royal council, equally afraid of the rebellion spreading, advised the young King Charles VI to appear lenient and grant a pardon. The king, accompanied by his court, traveled to Rouen to receive the city's submission. The leaders of the uprising promised to pay a fixed sum in return for the king's forgiveness. However, the underlying tensions remained unresolved, and the seeds of future conflict were sown. Just as Rouen was being brought to heel, Paris erupted. The new tax had not yet been publicly announced, but the news spread quickly through the streets. A herald, bribed with a bonus, rode into the marketplace and proclaimed the tax, then galloped away before the crowd could react. The people, already primed for rebellion, gathered in angry groups, vowing never to pay. When a tax collector tried to collect from a watercress vendor at Les Halles, the market people attacked and killed him. The city was in an uproar. People armed themselves and ran through the streets, calling for their neighbors to join them. They broke into the Hôtel de Ville, the city hall, and seized 3,000 mallets, which became their symbol and gave them their name, the Maillotins. The Maillotins, armed and enraged, struck fear into the hearts of the nobles and officials. Many of the wealthy fled to Vincennes, leaving behind their valuables and properties. The Maillotins hunted down tax collectors, dragged them from churches, and killed them. They looted the Jewish quarter, attacking and murdering those who refused to convert to Christianity. The upper bourgeois, who were both wary of the rising and eager to use it to their advantage, quickly organized a militia. They used the Maillotins to negotiate with the crown, hoping to force concessions. The court, seeing the potential for a widespread rebellion, decided to negotiate. The Duke of Burgundy, the Chancellor, and the Count of Coucy, known for his diplomatic skills, were sent to the port St. Antoine to hear the demands of the Parisians. The insurgents insisted on the abolition of all levies since the king's coronation, amnesty for their actions, and the release of 4 bourgeois who had been arrested for opposing Anjou's tax. The royal negotiators, to buy time, agreed to release the prisoners. However, this only emboldened the Maillotins, who stormed the Chatelet and other prisons, releasing all the inmates and destroying records. One of the most notable prisoners freed was Hugues Aubriot, the former provost of Paris. The Maillotins begged him to lead them, but Aubriot, wary of the risks, managed to escape the city during the night. The next morning, when the Maillotins discovered he was gone, they cried out that the city had been betrayed. The bourgeois, who had been using the Maillotins to their advantage, now faced a dilemma. They were anxious to contain the rising and prevent it from spiraling out of control. The court, having gained time, began to gather armed forces at Vincennes. The upper bourgeois, realizing the gravity of the situation, agreed to hand over 40 of the ringleaders to the king. 14 of these were publicly executed, and others were secretly drowned in the river. The king, having returned to Paris, imposed heavy fines and revoked the city's Charter of Liberties. The Maillotins, though temporarily subdued, were still seething with anger. The events in Paris and Rouen sent shockwaves through the kingdom. In Ghent, a city in Flanders, the people were inspired by the rebellions in France. The White Hoods, a symbol of past uprisings, reappeared, and a new leader emerged, Philip van Artevelde, the son of Jacob van Artevelde, a renowned rebel from a previous generation. Philip, a small but energetic man with a sharp tongue, organized a people's militia and declared that all classes would be heard in council, from the poorest to the wealthiest. When the city faced a food shortage, he forced abbeys and merchants to distribute their supplies. The Count of Flanders, Louis de Maille, seeing the threat, demanded that the Gantois people of Ghent submit to his authority. However, the Gantois, unwilling to be humiliated, chose to fight. They launched an attack on Bruges, the headquarters of the Count's forces. In a surprising turn of events, the militia of Bruges, overconfident and disorganized, was defeated. The Count, unhorsed and in danger, escaped in disguise and fled to Lille. Ghent, triumphant, declared Philip van Artevelde as regent of Flanders. He adopted the trappings of a noble, wearing fine clothing and dining on silver plate, and began to reorganize the cities under his rule. The rebellion in Flanders had significant implications for the balance of power in Europe. The Count of Flanders appealed to the Duke of Burgundy, his son-in-law, for help. Meanwhile, Philip van Artevelde sought an alliance with England, which was eager to support the rebels to protect the wool trade. However, the English nobility hesitated to ally with rebels, and the opportunity was lost. The Duke of Burgundy, with French support, would eventually crush the rebellion in Flanders, but the events of 1382 had shown the power of the people and the fragility of royal authority. The uprisings of 1382 were a stark reminder that the people of France and Flanders would not be silenced. They were willing to fight for their rights and liberties, even against the might of the crown. The Duc d'Anjou, who had sparked the rebellion with his greed, was a cautionary tale of the dangers of overreaching and the consequences of ignoring the will of the people. The events of 1382 would have a lasting impact on the political landscape of medieval Europe, shaping the relationships between the crown, the nobility, and the common people for generations to come.